Hello and welcome to a Thursday Live right here on the early line on SportsGrid and all across the SportsGrid network. That includes sportsgrid.com/watch, where you can find your favorite destination to consume everything all across the grid. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. We are together here for the next 3 hours up until 11 a.m. Eastern Time. If conference tournament week in men's college basketball fully began yesterday, with all 6 high major leagues entering the fold during conference championship week, it gets even better today. The big guns in action in the Big East and the Big 12. We will see the reigning national champions, Connecticut. We will see the teams in the Big 12 that earned a double bye. We will continue to break down conference tournament week 3 days away from Selection Sunday, when the NCAA tournament field in 2024 is revealed. Around the association we go, and on the first day of the league year in the National Football League DRS in 2024, some interesting moves for the wide receiver position around the NFL as well.
Yeah, we've got some great topics to talk about as we start, though. Even the free agency technically just started yesterday. It's already winding down. Big news out there. But also, if we're taking a look at college basketball today, wall-to-wall action starting at 11 a.m. It's going to be great. And also, if you equate this to the NFL playoffs, this is like the divisional round weekend where Ben said the big boys come out to play. The teams that have gotten hot, some teams have already won 2 games before they meet up with the team they're going to play today. A lot of fun to see. Neutral courts. You can make your way into the tournament, or you can play your way right out of it. Can't wait to get it going.
11 a.m. Eastern Time, the tip in the MAC tournament. That will be the final mid-major conference that has more than 4 teams that starts their conference tournament today, and it goes all the way until 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time as well. Let's make sure we bring in that SportsGrid radio audience here. Opening hour of a Thursday, live on the early line all across the SportsGrid network. Sirius XM Channel 159. All of our radio terrestrial affiliates now in the fold as well. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. So the league year officially beginning yesterday around the National Football League. But with the legal tampering window and the free agency flurry that we saw on Monday, a lot of the big names, a lot of the marquee moves already happened. Except for one big name wide receiver who surprisingly got a really big deal. 4 years, $92 million, in fact, as Calvin Ridley signs with the Tennessee Titans. He stays in the AFC South, but changes from Jacksonville to Nashville. My question is, for a Titans team that is rebuilding, what are they doing spending all this money in free agency?
There's 2 ways you can look at this, too, because we don't know how it's going to work out. But I think most people saw Ridley to the Titans and were like, oh, boy, wonder how that's going to go, as opposed to, oh, that's a really good move. That's going to help that football team out. And also, we were led to believe all throughout the day from the insiders, hey, this battle's going to come down to the New England Patriots and or the Jacksonville Jaguars. And out of nowhere, same divisional team steals a starting wide receiver from the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you are a young quarterback, like let's just say Will Levis, you think he's going to be the franchise guy. I do like what they're doing here in a sense, Ben, to say, we're going to give you weapons to sink or swim. We're going to know right away if you're our quarterback of the future, as opposed to the team that always comes up, the Chicago Bears, going, you're our franchise guy. We're not going to help you. We're going to see if you're absolutely amazing out there on the field without much help. You got help now. You got 2 qualified wide receivers on the outside, a decent tight end, Pollard in the backfield, a year removed from his injury. So there are no excuses for Will Levis. So as much as I do want to knock this move, because quite frankly, I don't think it helps them win the division. It's a lot of money for maybe a not so top flight wide receiver. I can't fault what they're trying to do to support their young quarterback, though, Ben.
Tennessee, the 3rd longest price in the AFC as a whole at 60-1. Only the Broncos and the Patriots have longer numbers. The Chargers, a much shorter price than that, 17-1. Their young quarterback, Justin Herbert, under a new head coach in Jim Harbaugh. But one of the targets that has been with Herbert in Los Angeles for the entirety of his career, Mike Williams, released yesterday by the Bolts after spending all 7 seasons of his NFL career in L.A., or at least with this Chargers organization. Only 3 games last year, DRS, for Mike Williams. Injuries have been a part of his NFL career as well.
Absolutely have. And also, when you're looking at your phone, let's just say you bet the 4 o'clock games and you're betting the Chargers here. You get the update from Adam Schefter, whoever it might be. Mike Williams left the game back. Mike Williams left the game with a knee. It's no surprise. He's a very good wide receiver, but you cannot pay top dollar for a guy who seemingly is never there when you need him, Ben. So I don't mind this move here by the Chargers.
The comeback player of the year, Joe Flacco, is on his way to Indianapolis, signing with the Colts for a 1-year deal that could be worth up to over $8 million. He will provide that steady veteran presence to try to bring Anthony Richardson along in Indy.
Yeah, I don't mind the move at all. You saw last year Gardner Minshew, the backup quarterback, filling in, at least giving you a competency at quarterback that you might not have had if you just went with one of those undrafted free agents at that point. So also, you say, well, how did Flacco move on from how he played so well in Cleveland up to in that last playoff game? Look, you can't have animosity in the locker room, and you were going to have that if Joe Flacco came back to Cleveland here. Love the move there. You get a steady hand for a rookie / second-year quarterback in Anthony Richardson. Good move there by Indy. That's their MO. Get a good backup quarterback, and it should work out for you.
Now college basketball. To Kansas City we go. Day number 2 of the Big 12 tournament, where in KC, it's often a home floor environment for the Kansas Jayhawks. But without their 2 best players, Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough Jr., oh boy, ain't no home cooking last night in Kansas City. Kansas loses in its first Big 12 tournament game by 20 to Cincinnati, 72-52. The Jayhawks were a 2.5-point dog, but they came nowhere close to covering against the Bearcats.
No, congratulations to the public. You guys were dead on this one. You just saw it for what it was. Kansas not really playing for a Big 12 championship, down their 2 best players, even though they were in Kansas City. Don't care, lay the wood. You won easily. I actually took a flyer on Kansas because, you know what? Let me just play contrarian here. Yeah, I played contrarian and I lost money there. So it is what it is.
Yeah, same for me as well. I bet Kansas outright on the money line, thinking the line was an overreaction. I am the fool. Kansas will enter the NCAA tournament. They're going to get in even with an at-large bid. It will be 34 consecutive years the Jayhawks have seen the big dance. The first time under Bill Self, however, that they have gone in with double-digit losses. NBA Finals recap for the second time during this regular season. And like the NBA Championship Series a season ago, Denver continues to roll over Miami. They have taken both of the games so far in the NBA Finals rematch in this regular season, winning by 12 last night in South Beach, covering as a 3.5-point road favorite.
Just a steady hand there, winning that final quarter by 11 points, and you see that final score 100-88, winning and covering the spread. We talked about this one yesterday. Short line here, I said to myself, if I don't think the Heat can win this game outright, I'm not taking the 3.5 points. The Nuggets were the right play, and we cashed in on that ticket.
Denver, the best team since the All-Star break, 10-1 since that break. The triple-double streak comes to a close for Luka Doncic at 7 straight games. He actually leaves early with what they were calling a hamstring issue, but Dallas keeps rolling. 4 straight wins, 109-99, and we'll have some baseball reaction a little bit later on in the show, but Garrett Cole shut down by the New York Yankees. Dylan Cease on his way to San Diego. More on the early line coming your way next.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like
This is
the guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to find a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But if we make them a third,
they get in. This is
they're
the Penn
always
State
going to
rule.
be better than the West half.
Yep.
And that 1 year that Lightning in a Bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Kentucky on the road as a 7-8 point dog, beat Tennessee by 4. North Carolina as a 5.5 point underdog, beat Duke on the road.
I took Kentucky plus the points. I think you won it as well. I even said I wouldn't be shocked if they won it. I'm not shocked. They're just that good. It's can they be focused for 40 minutes, and they actually played, I guess you would call it somewhat defense.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
How about this? Nikola Jokic, heavy favorite here to -170 price, followed by SGA at +250, and Luka Doncic at a 7-1 price.
It would require a whole lot from Luka to, like, 15 of the next 20 games he has to have triple doubles, like something absurd. And it really just comes down to Jokic being amazing, doing everything he's doing. Like, I hate to say it, but he's probably had this locked up the second Embiid was announced out.
The early line, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the
All
rim.
I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Live right here on this Thursday on the early line on SportsGrid. You see this grin on my face? It's because during Conference Championship Week in men's college basketball, games start today at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Right when we say goodbye, there will be college basketball for you on your screen. And then we have 4 games that tip tonight in Las Vegas at 11:30 p.m. Eastern time, well into the early morning wee hours of a Friday. This is the heart of conference tournament week around college basketball. We look back on a Wednesday. We set the stage for this Thursday, Donnie.
Yeah, it's good stuff all the way around. And again, you're looking at teams trying to play at a breakneck pace who might not be used to doing that, because you take a look at what's at stake here. So many of these basketball teams don't have the luxury, like we're going to talk about Kansas, like, hey, guys, let's rest it. Or let's just say Marquette with their superstar player. Let's rest that guy. This tournament technically doesn't matter. Teams are trying to punch through tickets, which does include the Cincinnati Bearcats. You just love to see it. Teams that didn't anticipate a run, catching fire at the right time, and maybe making their dreams come true with that automatic bid by cutting down the nets in their conference tournaments.
That is what March is about, making a run and playing your best basketball at the perfect time. We almost saw it last night with DePaul. We'll talk about the Big East tournament in just a little bit, but we start in the Big 12. Game of the night in Kansas City that featured a ranked team in Kansas, where often in KC they have what is a home court advantage, but without Hunter Dickinson, without Kevin McCullough Jr., the 2 best players for Bill Self's Jayhawks, they went down in their opening game in the Big 12 tourney and went down in a big way. Cincinnati has 2 wins in its first ever Big 12 tournament, and they beat Kansas last night by 20, covering easily as a 2.5-point favorite.
I mean, this is where you want to shine as the backup players. Now, granted, you still had some starters in the lineup for the Kansas Jayhawks, but they didn't perform at all. Furphy, 2 points here. Jackson, 5 points. Harris Jr., 8 points. Timberlake, 5 points here. It just wasn't enough. And the angle for me coming in wasn't really a handicap. It was saying this is a blue blood program here, basically on their home court, essentially, with fans still in the building on round number 1 and being excited. And also, you take a look at a Cincinnati Bearcats team. It's not as if you were playing like Baylor. Let's just say Houston's like, well, what did you want them to do? I didn't expect them to lay down this way, but to be honest, earlier in that second half, this game was between 4 and 6 points where Kansas, depending on when you got that line, 2.5 or 3 was still in the ball game.
Yeah.
But you sort of got that vibe with about 10 minutes to go. They just didn't have enough left in the tank. And if you're going to be the Kansas Jayhawks and shoot 3 for 20 from three-point land, you're not going to beat anybody's starters or non-starters in that game. I should have saw this coming a mile away, and credit the people that just did this simple thing. Kansas isn't trying to win the Big 12 tournament here. Kansas down their 2 best players here. And Cincinnati already with a win under the belt to try to get some momentum, a 20-point victory. That was a paint-by-numbers game that I just got a little bit cute with saying, let me have some fun and see if the Kansas Jayhawks can win this game without their 2 best players. Didn't happen.
Hey, same by me as well, Donnie. I expected more out of a Kansas team that still has a lot of talent outside of Kevin McCullough Jr. and Hunter Dickinson. Kansas will enter the NCAA tournament with 10 losses for the first time ever under Bill Self. As we said, they are going to make it 34 consecutive trips to the big dance. But the first time under Bill Self, who has been in Lawrence for nearly 2 decades, that they will have double-digit losses. In my estimation, Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough Jr. are not going to be fully healthy for the NCAA tournament. I think KU might be in danger of a very early round of 64 exit in the big dance. Other Big 12 tournament scores yesterday. 20th ranked BYU in its opener against UCF, dominant. The Cougars win by 14, putting up 87, 87-73. BYU covers as a 6.5-point favorite. They have covered in 5 consecutive games. TCU, one of the best cover teams in the Big 12. They send Oklahoma packing, covering as a 3.5-point favorite. And a stunner in the nightcap. K-State knocks off Texas, one of the nightcaps, the second to last game. K-State knocks off Texas, a wildly disappointing year for Rodney Terry and the Longhorns. But Kansas State wins outright as a 5.5-point dog, 78-74.
Yeah, of those 3 games, you focus on that BYU team because I do still have them as an outlier here that I think can make some money in that 40 to 60 to 1 range, let's just say, depending on where they wind up on seeding on Selection Sunday. But the one thing you always get nervous about sometimes, you get into that environment. UCF picks up a victory already, waiting on BYU. BYU hasn't played on the neutral court site yet. And also, what do we know? They lean on the 3-point shot. But how about BYU last night, Ben? 14 of 30 from 3-point range, 47% as a team, and shot close to 80% with volume from the free throw line. I'm intrigued by this BYU team, and it's good to see them get off to a good start in the Big 12 tournament, which means they got those sight lines down. We're not worried about the 3-point shooting a la Kansas, only making 3 of roughly 23-point shots.
TCU 12-7 against the number in Big 12 play this year. BYU will match up against Texas Tech. It's the 4-5 game in the Big 12 tournament. BYU a slight 2.5-point favorite. I like the early look at the Cougars there in the first game today in Kansas City. K-State, by the way, winning outright against Texas yesterday, 6-1 against the number in their last 7 as a dog. They will be a 6.5-point dog against Iowa State into the quarterfinals of the Big 12 tournament. ACC tourney action in Washington, D.C. continues. Donnie gave you the over yesterday between Florida State and Virginia Tech. Hit in a big way. 86-76. FSU, the victory. Game goes over 151.5. 5 straight overs for FSU. Syracuse, their season done. What a lackluster performance as a slight favorite. Wake Forest needed a victory, Donnie, and they get it by 13, covering as an 8.5-point favorite against Notre Dame.
Yeah, popular play there was to take the points there because Wake Forest was laying a lot of points in that game to take Notre Dame. Wake Forest clearly the better team overall. Didn't pay all that much attention to NC State and Syracuse. Didn't have a great read on that one, but Syracuse now 11-9 in the ACC. Needed a couple wins there, maybe get hot at the right time. Weren't able to do it. The one interesting thing too is Florida State is so talented here that if they put it together, 86 points there, that was pretty impressive by them. Leonard Hamilton always has the talent, but didn't put it together in that ACC at 10-10. Maybe they can make a run, but again, I think Syracuse probably going back to the drawing board, new coach, new team. I mean, come on now, we can't have this at Syracuse. We can't.
That is me making the sound effects, by the way, for a really disappointing effort out of SU. First year for Red Autry after the very long tenure of Jim Boeheim. Maybe give him some grace. But in big games this year, the Orange never showed up. By the way, Boston College on a slight run. They win outright as a 6.5-point dog by 21 over Clemson. Around the country yesterday, USC continues its role. They cover as a 3.5-point favorite in their Pac-12 opener against Washington. The Mike Hopkins era in Seattle comes to a close. USC, though, has now won 5 of their last 6, covering in 5 of their last 6. They get Arizona on day number 2 at the Pac-12 tourney. And we need to focus on Villanova and DePaul. 58-57. Nova was a 24.5-point favorite. DePaul had a lead for a good majority of the nightcap last night at Madison Square Garden. Justin Moore, with 10 seconds left, hits the game-winning 3 to just barely keep Villanova's NCAA tournament hopes alive in year number 2 under Kyle Neptune. But if you beat DePaul by only a point as a 24.5-point favorite, I think that should eliminate you from Big Dance contention right then and there.
I mean, disgraceful performance overall. And by the way, yesterday, like, you're going down to try to make some bets and you say to yourself, like, wait a second, 24.5. I mean, look, Villanova, they want to win, but are they going to press that needle down in the final 5 minutes of the game? Well, they actually had to press the needle down just to actually win that ball game. One of those performances that you say, like, hey, Villanova needs a win or two to get in. I feel like they got that win, and you should be, as an odds maker / tournament person watching this in the committee, going like, yeah, that's embarrassing. That actually should count as a loss for Villanova. But I got to say this. I actually like Villanova today with the points.
Nope.
It's just the way it is.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Yeah. Don't care if Tyler Kolek is not there. Cam Jones was left off the all Big East teams. First, second, and even honorable mention. Give me the Golden Eagles. I am done with Villanova. Done with them. We'll have a little bit more around college basketball because 3 tickets were punched last night to the Big Dance in mid-major conference tournament championship games. Then we'll spin it around the association on a 9-game slate on a Wednesday in the NBA. That's up next here on the Early Line.
The Bostonian versus the book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like this is the guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to find a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But if we make them a third,
they get in.
Third,
this is the Penn State rule.
Be better than the West half.
Yep.
And that 1 year that Lightning in a Bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the book.
Kentucky on the road as a 7-8-point dog, beat Tennessee by 4. North Carolina as a 5.5-point underdog, beat Duke on the road.
I took Kentucky plus the points. I think you on it as well. I even said I wouldn't be shocked if they won it. I'm not shocked. They're just that good. It's can they be focused for 40 minutes, and they actually played, I guess you would call it somewhat defense.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
How about this? Nikola Jokic, heavy favorite here at a -170 price, followed by SGA at +250, and Luka Doncic at a 7-1 price.
It would require a whole lot from Luka to, like, 15 of the next 20 games he has to have triple doubles, like something absurd. And it really just comes down to Jokic being amazing, doing everything he's doing. Like, I hate to say it, but he's probably had this locked up the second Embiid was announced out.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the rim.
All I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart Team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Live right here on this Thursday on the early line. We start in college basketball, then we go around the association with some recaps from a huge Wednesday night on the hardwood. Big Ten tournament updates. Michigan season comes to a close, losing to Penn State. Did not cover as an 8.5-point dog. Michigan ends the year at 8 in 24. That's a winning percentage of .250, which ties for the second worst winning percentage for the Michigan Wolverines in the 107 years of their men's basketball program history. Changes potentially coming in Ann Arbor, and Maryland ends Rutgers' year with a 15-point win in Minneapolis. Also in the MAC, Fairfield, a 5-point win over Iona. Those were some of the big games, DRS, on Wednesday. We'll get to the 3 tickets that were punched and the automatic berths to the NCAA tournament in a moment.
Yeah, and we're trying to step up here in class, meaning that the big boys come to play today. So we'll have some of those teams who go, okay, they won. All right, what about this? In the lower conferences here, right? Of course, if you're a steady handicapper, you're watching all of these things. But as you move forward, the better teams move forward, the more fun here. And also, teams like that MAC conference, it's a one-bid league, man. You got to win that thing. So exciting finishes certainly are going to happen here over the next couple of days.
UConn will get Xavier. You saw the Musketeers knocking off the Butler Bulldogs. Connecticut, a 14.5-point favorite inside Madison Square Garden. Providence needed a victory over its former head coach in Ed Cooley and Georgetown. They win big. They cover as a double-digit favorite. Now to the 3 automatic berths that were secured yesterday for the NCAA tournament for a 3rd consecutive season. The Bobcats of Montana State are back in the big dance, but unlike the previous 2 years, Donnie, when they were the favorites out in the Big Sky, they had won at least 25 games in the regular season. They were only 17-17 against their arch in-state rival Montana, and they were a 6.5-point dog. But that March pedigree continues for the Cats. They win outright as an underdog, big, 85-70. Colgate has won the Patriot League for 5 consecutive seasons, into the big dance for 5 consecutive seasons where there has been an NCAA tournament. And keep an eye on McNeese out of the Southland. They defeat Nichols yesterday, 92-76. They closed as a 16.5-point favorite early in the day, laying 14.5. McNeese, they have won 30 games this year, 30-3, only behind James Madison at this moment for the second most wins at the D1 level in men's college basketball.
Yeah, and that's going to be a problem here for some of these upper echelon teams that run into the name McNeese State and say, oh, we should win this one. We see this time and time again on a year-to-year basis where now once you hit Selection Sunday, you know it's going to be the popular team? No, it's not going to be people talking about the UConns of the world, and maybe it's Houston and Purdue. McNeese State is going to get a lot of love, and rightfully so. The one thing that you love about this is when you come from those, lower than mid-majors basically in the Southland, you better have unbelievable stats, and they have that. The one thing you can say about this team, they're not learning how to win, Ben. That's 30 wins on the season. This team isn't going to be a surprise upset when they reach and say, you know what? We're going to place maybe a 2, 3, or a 4 seed. We can handle our business. I can't wait to watch you play out.
I think they'll be on the 13 line or the 14 line. They have not played a quad 1 game this year, but they are 3-2 in quad 2. Some quality opponents for McNeese and a team to keep an eye on. Now around the association as we change our attention from college basketball into the pros. NBA Finals rematch for a second time during this regular season. The Nuggets and the Heat. First game in Denver. The Nuggets won by 6, 103-97 at the end of February, but it was Miami covering by the hook, a 6.5-point dog. Last night, the Heat, a dog even at home in South Beach, getting 3.5. They did not cover. Denver, a victory by 12, 188. The Nuggets now, DRS, have won 4 straight. They have covered in 3 of 4. They're the best team since the All-Star break, victorious in 10 of 11.
Yeah, getting locked in here because, again, you take a look at some of these teams that are exciting, right? And you say to yourself, all right, hey, they won a great game, 150 to 140. Okay, that's what you anticipate. But the Denver Nuggets do it so many different ways. You want to get grimy? You want to play the Miami Heat? You want to slow it down? Yeah, we got you here. Oh, you want to be a close game in the fourth quarter where we pull away because we're a national champion, or should I say an NBA champion at this point? And also, looking at the box score itself, Ben, Nikola Jokic, hey, they get a triple-double? No. 12 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 assists. Oh, Jamal Murray must have went off. Nope, he only had 14 points. You got 26 points out of Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, and you went on the road and beat the Heat by double digits, which meant you pulled away in the fourth quarter. That is unbelievably impressive. Has to be, and again, I understand if we're talking about Boston as the best overall team record-wise, but if you're just looking at the Nuggets, steady as they go in every single ball game. Hard to bet against them. We didn't yesterday. You saw that 3.5-point line going. I don't know if Miami can win this game, but I certainly am going to bet them, thinking they can hang within the 3.5. There you go. Double-digit win, holding the Heat on their home court to 88 points. Impressive.
The Heat have now dropped 4 in a row. They've gone under in all 4 games. 217 and a hook was that total. Because of Denver's 4-game win streak and how well they have played since the All-Star break, the Nuggets back in that first-place spot in the Western Conference standings. And a little bit of separation now for Denver in the odds market as well. Plus 145 to win the West. The Clippers still the second-best price, I guess, at plus 270. Denver has won 4 straight. Dallas has won 4 straight as well. 10-point victory at home last night against the shorthanded Golden State Warriors. 109-99 for the Mavericks. They cover at home as a 7-point favorite over the Dubs. Dallas really good at home this year. As a favorite, I should say, 25-15 against the spread. And on this 4-game win streak, the Mavericks have covered in all 4. So that's the result of the game. But just something to mention, Luka Doncic, who entered last night with 7 consecutive triple-doubles, did leave the game early in the fourth quarter with what the Mavericks are calling hamstring soreness. Not sure how significant the injury is, but did just want to detail that here despite the Dallas victory.
Yeah, and they won by 10 points, which is the main ingredient last night. But again, you got to look forward to, Ben, because you're trying to get out of the play-in round here. And you see the Dallas Mavericks 8 games back of the Nuggets, but again, only a half game back of getting to that 6th spot here, which is the Sacramento Kings. And let me just explain to anybody out there, hamstring injuries are always tricky, and athletes typically are the last to know how tricky it is. You look at the NFL and they say at the game, hey, man, I just cramped up a little bit. Yeah, see you in about 3 to 4 weeks at this point. And I'm not saying that's going to be an issue here with Doncic on the sideline. But whenever I hear hamstring on a superstar and, oh, yeah, maybe I just left precautionary, he's going to be down for at least 2 to 3 games at a minimum here, and rightfully so. You're heading down the stretch playing good basketball. Who knows if you can get the 6th seed? I'll tell you how you don't get the 6th seed. Run Luka Doncic out there over the next 1 to 2 games and have him really hurt that hamstring, where now you're looking at a month where he has to sit out. This is a bad time to get an injury for the Mavericks, who we just started to say Luka Doncic has been unbelievable, triple-doubles every night, and I kept checking the box score without looking at the social media feeds. Like, oh, look at that. A little bit of an off night for Doncic. His numbers weren't moving. Well, there it was. He was actually injured in that basketball game. Hopefully, it is precautionary, Ben, but we've seen this tale before, trust me.
21 points, 9 dimes, only 3 boards for Luka Doncic last night. Again, did exit the game early in that 4th and final quarter. It was plus 135 for Luka to record his 8th consecutive triple-double. By the way, an update on Steph Curry. He was sidelined again last night, but progressing in a positive direction. A lot of people think that might have been the last game that he misses due to the ankle injury here down the home stretch. And one other historic note, potentially, Daniel Gafford, the big man for Dallas. Last night, 10 points, a perfect 5 for 5 from the field. Donnie, Gafford has made 33 consecutive field goal attempts. Wow. He is only 2 shy of Wilt Chamberlain's number of 35 in a row, 3 more straight field goal makes. Daniel Gafford, NBA history books for the Dallas Mavericks. The Sacramento Kings, last night's second leg of a home back-to-back, but they remained in Sacramento following a 35-point blowout victory over Milwaukee, and yet we're getting points to the Lakers, who are not a great favorite this year, and it turned out to be quite a stinky line. Sacramento wins outright against Los Angeles in this California clash in the state's capital, 120-107. The Kings win outright as a 3-point underdog, winning by 13.
I thought the Lakers were the right side in this game, and even watching that game early, saw Austin Reeves going nuts from the three-point line. He ends up with 7 triples for the game and 28 points, and it wasn't even enough to stay in the ball game. The Lakers lost by double digits because of the slow start here from Anthony Davis and also LeBron James, particularly in the first half. Now, they did turn it on a little bit in the second, 22 total points for Davis and 18 for LeBron James, but that's a good victory for the Kings yesterday. I thought the Lakers were the right side in this one. Again, just looking at the box score, you give me 28 points out of Austin Reeves on a back-to-back for the Kings, I think I'm coming away with an easy victory for the Lakers. That wasn't the case last night. Good win by the Kings.
Did you see our guy, by the way, Domantas Sabonis last night? Another triple-double, 17 points, 19 rebounds, and 10 assists. He keeps stacking it up. Because of the victory, Sacramento actually vaults past Phoenix for that 6th spot right now. The Suns fall into what would be the play-in tournament as the 7th seed in the Western Conference. This was a line, Donnie, that stood out to both you and I yesterday, breaking down the games in the NBA. New Orleans, 7.5-point home favorite. A very strong line in favor of the Pels. It turned out the line was completely incorrect as Cleveland, with Donovan Mitchell back in the lineup, only 14 points, though, in 28 minutes played, go to the Big Easy and win by 20+, 116-95, outright as an underdog.
Yeah, that was the caveat yesterday, right? You saw all those points. You say, boy, if I can get, Mitchell into the lineup regardless, he's going to be able to take some double teams away from other players. You probably would be interested. We didn't think it would be a 116-95 if he played or didn't play in this game. That's a nice win for the Cavaliers. And also, the heck were the Pels doing on their home court? Under 100 points to get smoked by the Cavs? Stop.
Snapped a Pels 4-game win streak. New Orleans under in 7 of their last 8. Just to know, NFL free agency news next.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like this is the guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to find a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But if we make them a third,
they get in.
Third,
this is the Penn State rule.
Be better than the West half.
Yep.
That 1 year that lightning in a bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Kentucky on the road as a 7-8-point dog, beat Tennessee by 4. North Carolina as a 5.5-point underdog, beat Duke on the road.
I took Kentucky plus the points. I think you on it as well. I even said I wouldn't be shocked if they won it. I'm not shocked. They're just that good. It's can they be focused for 40 minutes? And they actually played, I guess you would call it somewhat defense.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
How about this? Nikola Jokic, heavy favorite here to -170 price, followed by SGA at +250, and Luka Doncic at a 7-1 price.
It would require a whole lot from Luka to 15 of the next 20 games he has to have triple doubles, something absurd. And it really just comes down to Jokic being amazing, doing everything he's doing. I hate to say it, but he's probably had this locked up the second Embiid was announced out.
The early line only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the
All
rim.
I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart Team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live. Prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live. Overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
NFL free agency frenzy officially continued yesterday. I put in the word official because the league year started on a Wednesday around the National Football League for 2024. When things became official, you saw contract news, official signings, Kirk Cousins meeting with the media at his new home for the Atlanta Falcons, and some more moves made yesterday. This, a salty headline for a man that has reformed himself and has done his time. Tennessee's gamble. Come on, Shamesy guy in Friezo. That's a little bit mean. For the Calvin Ridley news that he is signing in Nashville a 4-year, $92 million deal. They did tell me during the break, DRS, they said Tennessee's gamble because there's a lot to pay a wide receiver when you are a rebuilding team.
Exactly. And if you're Ridley and Hopkins, you're trying to parlay that duo into a couple more wins this season. So it certainly makes sense all the way around on offense there. But having said that, we knew he was going to get paid here, Ben, right? We saw the salary cap going up $30 million per team, which means you're going to get some contracts that might be some eye scratchers. Ridley's a very good wide receiver, but usually you're going to see this money paid out by a team that's looking to, Jacksonville Jaguars, win their own division, and that keeps them maybe in the same line as the Texans. Or let's just say he goes to the Kansas City Chiefs. You go, ooh, you know what? This could be that missing piece where we know the Kansas City Chiefs can still win Super Bowls without dominant wide receivers, but now watch out, we're going to go over the top. But I have to take a different approach in this instance, and you started the show out, and rightfully so, this way. My first inclination of this move was, the heck are the Titans doing, man? Like, this isn't going to move the needle at all. They're not going to win that division. But there is something to be said about, I'm trying to see what I have at quarterback. Now, granted, if Levis isn't your guy, you still got Ridley for a couple years, and maybe you'll find another quarterback that can go with him. But there's no excuses now for Will Levis. I don't want to hear next year where it's like, hey, Levis is throwing for 178 yards a game. The offense is stuck in mud, because it shouldn't be. Pollard should be a quality running back there. You have 3 wide receivers if you include Treylon Burks, the former number 1 pick of the Tennessee Titans just a few years back, to go with Hopkins and Ridley. No more excuses here. You have solid tight end, a decent offensive line. It's time to see what you have. So I'm starting to come around on this issue, even though technically I still don't love it, but I can see what the Titans, Ben, are trying to do here.
And I guess that's a very fair point. I have more issues with the Tony Pollard move because you let Derrick Henry walk and then you paid a running back knowing that Tyjae Spears, your second-year pro who you drafted early on day 2, was going to be there as well in Nashville. But I do get the investment to figure out if Will Levis is your guy. And although he went in the second round and his draft stock slid like we kind of expected despite what the odds and the smoke had to say, it's still a lot to invest, the second pick of the second round a year ago, on the quarterback spot. You need to figure out what you have. Rand Carthen is the new general manager there for his second year in Nashville. Brian Callahan, former offensive coordinator for Cincinnati, is the new head coach. Offensive-minded, perhaps, in Tennessee to figure out what the Titans have moving forward. 6-1 number for Tennessee to win the AFC South. Longest number, as we shared, 60-1 to win the AFC Championship. Third longest price in the conference. Only the Broncos and the Patriots have a longer shot of winning the AFC Championship. Now, you might be saying, in the AFC South, if Jacksonville, still in Trevor Lawrence's rookie deal, entering year number 4 before they have to pay him, why did they not invest in the wide receiver position and keep Ridley in-house? As Donnie said a couple of days ago here when we were looking at the biggest names still available in NFL free agency, because of how things played out with the Falcons, if they signed Calvin Ridley, more than likely would have to send back a day 2. That would be second round or third round pick. That makes it a little bit steeper when you look at the money that Calvin Ridley was paid. Wide receiver position was front and center yesterday on the official day of the opening of the 2024 NFL league year. Mike Williams, after 7 years with the Chargers organization, cut by the Bolts yesterday, freeing up about $20 million in cap space for LA. But his tenure with the Bolts now comes to a close.
Yeah, and somebody's going to probably get a really good wide receiver, maybe not have to pay a lot of money for it. But also, as we talk about, you got to level up your expectations with Mike Williams, because this is one of those, if your team signs him, ooh, that's an exciting name. We've seen him do some big things in the past. And you go like, well, how many games is he going to play? 10, 11 max at this point. And that's being real in the NFL. As you get aging, you don't usually get healthier as you go on. If you're an injured player most of the time, as it feels like with Mike Williams, you're going to stay injured here. I want to see what his number is, but also what teams he can fit on, because teams like the Jacksonville Jaguars that lost a wide receiver. We know the Patriots are in the market for a wide receiver. Everybody loves wide receivers, and rightfully so. And again, with that salary cap going up, he'll find a home fairly quickly here. But it is interesting to see. You're seeing Harbaugh reshape that roster as opposed to, let me just come in, let's re-sign everybody. The talent is there. They just needed a new coach to get over the top. So they're starting to weed guys in and out, which I don't mind. You're going to have to mold the team as you see fit, and I trust Harbaugh.
The Chargers have the 5th overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. That's at the end of next month in April in Detroit. And currently the favorite to go 5th overall, the FanDuel Sportsbook, is the outstanding offensive tackle, Joe Alt, out of Notre Dame. They also have Rashawn Slater, who they drafted early on in the opening half of the opening round a few years ago, out of Northwestern. You could bookend your offensive line with 2 very talented tackles to keep Justin Herbert upright after a year where he was significantly banged up. There is always optimism in Los Angeles because Justin Herbert plays the quarterback position. It was unfounded, though, in the first few years of his NFL career. Anthony Lynn, and of course the past 3 years under Brandon Staley. Plus 370 for the Bolts to win the AFC West. Second best price, but second best by a wide margin. The Chiefs, who have won this division 8 straight seasons, are a minus 250 favorite. Donnie, with Jim Harbaugh in LA, who I believe, and you just look at the numbers, is a program or organizational builder at every single stop of his football coaching career. What do you think the true outlook and expectation should be for the Chargers in 2024?
Well, usually you're right. You're talking about setting the foundation up here. And everywhere he's gone, he's built his program specifically there, obviously, in the college football. But also, let's remind ourselves, he came into a San Francisco 49ers franchise that was looking for a heartbeat and certainly gave that to him, making multiple runs at the NFC Championship. So the expectations are going to be high right away. But it's interesting to see how this roster is actually going to play out and what's going to take place. The one thing I do expect here, when we looked at the Chargers for the past couple years under different head coaches, it just seemed like they were scatterbrained out there, right? Not able to win those close games, whether it's missing kicks or just making bad decisions as a coaching staff. That's not going to happen now. It's going to be a very good fundamental team, which is going to be fun to watch. But if we're looking at the division itself, I do think they're better than the Raiders. Even though the Raiders made a couple pieces here, is it going to be Minshew at quarterback? Of course, you're going to trust Herbert a little bit more than that. The Denver Broncos in a complete rebuild here. So it is going to be the Chargers and the Chiefs 1 and 1A in that division. The only problem is it's still Andy Reid. It's the Chiefs. And if Patrick Mahomes is healthy, we know the end story here. But the end game here is not for next year. It's the following year when I get a full year here. Let me mold this roster the way I want it here, and then we'll take off. That's when I think you're going to see some real signs of life for the Chargers here, but they'll have a solid season, no doubt, this year.
Drew Tranquill, who was a big piece for Kansas City's defense at the linebacker spot on way to a Super Bowl run, used to play it on the Chargers, tweeted at Mike Williams yesterday. We've seen a lot of interdivision mixing throughout this NFL free agency period. Mike Williams, if he's even healthy for 12 games with Kansas City, big play target for Patrick Mahomes. I think they make a splash in the wide receiver market as well. Speaking of now former Chargers, Eric Kendricks, the linebacker, was expected to sign in San Francisco. Then last minute, Dallas finally signs their first free agent of this period in the 2024 offseason. Eric Kendricks changes from San Francisco to Dallas. The Cowboys at a piece on their defense. Keeping it in the AFC West, you mentioned the Las Vegas Raiders. Yeah, I think it's the Chiefs, the Chargers, and then the other two teams in the division at this moment, the Raiders and the Broncos. Las Vegas now has Gardner Minshew. They let go of Jimmy Garoppolo, who, oh, by the way, is suspended for the first few games of the 2024 NFL season, letting go of a few other players yesterday as well. It will be interesting to see what the Raiders truly do. There is buy-in, there is investment, of course, in their new head coach, Antonio Pierce, who won over the locker room. What do the results look like, though, for Las Vegas in 2024?
The results probably not going to look all that great, but having said that, I like the way they're building this football team, and quite frankly, you signed Gardner Minshew to a pretty decent deal, and if I am a new head coach, I'm not relying on the young guy O'Connell, right? I'm going to move forward to go with Gardner Minshew because I know that's probably going to give me at least 8 wins in my pocket because he'll be a competent passer.
Yep.
And when you're trying to establish that locker room after what we saw last year, just keep the momentum going. We know Gardner Minshew is not going to be your franchise guy, but also keep in mind the following season, we don't know who's going to shake free. Maybe it's going to be a Kirk Cousins that shakes free at that point, or a Kirk Cousins type of player where you can now say, all right, I have the shell of a football team. Now I'm just waiting for my quarterback. And also, if you're taking a look at, I got to beat Justin Herbert down the line. I got to beat Patrick Mahomes down the line. They got some hunters now on that front line, defensive front four, that they can collapse that pocket without blitzing here. I like what the Raiders are doing. I don't know if it's going to equate to a divisional run here, but I think they're taking the next steps here to be a formidable football team over the next couple years.
Big splash with Christian Wilkins, of course, on the opening day of free agency. 4-year, $110 million deal for that big interior defensive lineman who played his first 5 seasons in Miami. You pair that with Max Crosby, a fearsome defensive front for Las Vegas. The Raiders do have the 13th overall pick in the first round. I wonder what they do with it. I'm not sure what is next for Jimmy Garoppolo. He'll sign somewhere, probably the vet minimum.
Niners.
He'll be a backup in a reserve spot. Ooh, back to San Francisco. They do need a backup quarterback, right? Sam Darnold now on his way to Minneapolis. Speaking of a player in the NFC West, Bobby Wagner sticking around, signs a deal in Washington where he reunites with his former defensive coordinator in the Pacific Northwest. That would be the head coach of the Commanders, Dan Quinn. The two teamed up as a part of the Legion of Boom defense to win a Super Bowl back in 2013.
By the way, if we're talking about like getting Band-Aids out on a bad season last year, the Commanders are certainly doing that. I mean, you want to talk about maybe the most active team in free agency? By far, it's been the Commanders. And I got to tell you, I like some of the moves that they're making. It's not moves that they're going to overtake the Dallas Cowboys and or the Philadelphia Eagles.
No.
But it sort of says, you know what? We're going to be a competent franchise this year. Dan Quinn, you trust him as a head coach. He's got some cachet around the league. You know that defense is going to get corrected from whatever that mess of Jack Del Rio / Riverboat Ron Rivera as their head coach. They'll be more competent there. They just, again, they've signed everybody but a quarterback at this point, so we'll see where they go in the draft. But I like the moves they made as a Band-Aid just to show their fan base. We got new ownership. Come out. We're going to be a respectable team. We're not going to get run over every week, or we're not going to embarrass you. So I like what the Commanders are doing, but it's not going to equate to we're going to push the Eagles and or the Cowboys in the NFC East.
We're talking about these moves here. Did they move the number? Did they make some of these teams that are expected to have win totals around 5.5, 6.5, 7.5 entering next year all that much better? No. But are they nice complementary pieces? For sure. Washington's biggest next move, of course, is its second overall in the 2024 NFL Draft. We shared this yesterday. Caleb Williams remains the heavy odds-on favorite, minus 2,000 to go first overall. A change, though, for the odds-on favorite in minus money to be that second overall selection that Washington currently holds. Jaden Daniels, the Heisman winner out of LSU, now an odds-on favorite, minus 150. It was Drake May around a minus 130, minus 140 price just a week ago. May now the favorite to go third overall. They are going to jostle for those two positions all draft cycle long. The fifth major in golf, the Players' Championship, next.
The Bostonian versus the book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like this is the guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to find a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But if we make them a third,
they get in.
Third,
this is
they're
the Penn
always
State
going to
rule.
be better than the West half.
Yep.
That 1 year that Lightning in a Bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the book.
Kentucky on the road as a 7-8 dog, beat Tennessee by 4. North Carolina as a 5.5 point underdog, beat Duke on the road.
I took Kentucky plus the points. I think you on it as well. I even said I wouldn't be shocked if they won it. I'm not shocked. They're just that good. It's can they be focused for 40 minutes? And they actually played, I guess you would call it somewhat defense.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
How about this? Nikola Jokic, heavy favorite here to -170 price, followed by SGA at +250, and Luka Doncic at a 7-1 price.
It would require a whole lot from Luka to 15 of the next 20 games he has to have triple doubles, something absurd. And it really just comes down to Jokic being amazing, doing everything he's doing. I hate to say it, but he's probably had this locked up the second Embiid was announced out.
The early line only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the rim.
All I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart Team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The unofficial fifth major on the PGA Tour in the world of golf happens this week at TPC Sawgrass in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. It is the Players' Championship in 2024. As we end out this opening hour, we previewed it with Keith Stewart 2 days ago. He was live at TPC Sawgrass, as you saw with the backdrop. And we've actually seen some odds movement since that point, DRS. Scottie Scheffler remains the very short favorite after a dominant victory last week, winning by 5 at the Arnold Palmer Invitational at Bay Hill. He was 15 under. Nobody else in the field better than 10 under par. He's still plus 550 to win the Players' Championship. He was half the rest of the field and then some when we previewed this earlier this week. Now it's even a larger distinction because Rory was at least 12-1. Now Rory McIlroy is 14-1. So it's half Rory's price and then take off another $1.50, and that's when you get to Scheffler's number.
Yeah, trying to take a look at the current standings here in the tournament, because if we're taking a look at live numbers here on the FanDuel Sportsbook, plus 550 for Scheffler, Rory McIlroy at a plus 850 price. So I know they're out on the golf course right now. We'll check into that. But also, keep in mind to this as well. Rory McIlroy, I'm glad we brought him up because he's basically saying what the majority of golf fans are saying. Hurry up here and make an agreement between the PGA Tour and Live Golf so we can get these superstars back in the tournaments, because everybody looks at ratings, including Rory, saying they are in the tank right now to open up the season, and rightfully so. You splintered the fields. Get the fields back together where they can play bigger events together and all the majors. The TPC at Sawgrass, the Players' Championship, usually one of the biggest events out here. Now we're saying, like, all right, there's 5 guys I know in this field as opposed to 15 guys I know in this field as superstar golfers. Hopefully that gets figured out sooner than later too, Ben.
Rory's point was focus on the golf. Make the golf the drama. Make the golf the exciting part, not who is going where and what this means in terms of the updated potential deal between the PIF and the PGA Tour. By the way, Give me Willie Z, 33-1. Will Zalatoris to win the Players' Championship. Profit boost on FanDuel. Will there be a hole-in-one on the 17th? Minus 270 to the no at this moment. Hour 2 in 55 seconds.